Yikes. Hi, everybody. I'm Cameron Grove, and if you're anything like me, that video probably made you pretty uncomfortable. In fact, if you're human, that video probably made you pretty uncomfortable. If it didn't, try watching it yourself, in the dark, alone. I've watched it multiple times while making this presentation, and it still gives me a hearty spook every time. But take a minute to think. Do you know why this video gives you the creeps? Maybe you don't like the mannequin's face, or maybe you don't like the way it moves. Maybe its voice was off-putting, or maybe the erratic music even caught you off guard. The terror you experienced there was most likely due to a combination of these factors, even if you couldn't quite articulate that. But why did those factors give us the creeps? Watching a pre-recorded video on a 2D screen doesn't pose any immediate threat to you, right? So why did your brain think you had something to be worried about? You don't know. Literally, that's the answer. You don't know. And the fact that you didn't know is exactly what had your brain so worried. I know that sounds confusing, but I'm going to be exploring it a lot more, so stay with me. And that's going to lead me right into my question. To what extent does our fear of the unknown shape our interactions with the world? To answer this, I'll have to delve into a few other questions. Why do we fear the unknown? To what extent does this fear benefit us? And to what extent, on the other side, does it hinder us? Let's start by examining why we fear the unknown. The unknown is a pretty broad phrase in itself, and I'm willing to bet there's a whole lot of stuff that you and me both don't know. But I'm going to put it this way. Imagine a very real, very deadly situation. You're on a rock wall with no harness miles and miles above the ground. There's a man with a gun in your house with the intention to kill you. Donald Trump just became your president. If you're ever put into these situations, you're going to be scared, and for good reason. These situations pose a serious threat to your existence. That's how we've survived as a species. When something is threatening to take your life away, our instinct is not to be around said thing. However, that video we watched did not threaten our lives. Things we find purely creepy don't do that. So what makes them scary? Stephen King, a master of fear, defined fear in 3 parts: gross out, horror, and terror. Gross out is self-explanatory. A mutilated corpse or an infectious disease. I won't spend too long on this one. Then horror, according to him, is the unnatural. He employs a giant spider or The Walking Dead as examples. Terror, though, is what fascinates me the most. I think he put it best in saying, when you come home and notice everything you own had been taken away and replaced by an exact substitute. It's when the lights go out and you feel something behind you. You hear it, you feel its breath against your ear. But when you turn around, there's nothing there. Terror is the unknown. Terror is vagueness. Terror is not being able to figure out if there's a threat or not. This is best exemplified by the uncanny valley hypothesis. The hypothesis was coined in 1970 by Dr. Masahiro Mori, a Japanese roboticist. Mori built robots and noticed that as he added more human-like features to his robots, people found them more charming, more empathetic. But in making his robots as humanoid as he could, adding synthetic skin and more realistic expressions, people began to dislike them, feel uneasy around them. This led to his uncanny valley hypothesis. Put simply, if something doesn't have any human characteristics, we don't have a strong emotional response to it. Adding more human characteristics to it can make it more likable, relatable, cute, or cool. There is a point, however, where it becomes so human, but not quite there yet, that we're actively scared and disgusted by it. This is why that video made us so uncomfortable. This is why we're troubled by mannequins and dummies. This is why those freaking kids from the Polar Express are terrifying. The human brain's intuition in identifying a threat is thrown completely out of whack when it comes into contact with ambiguity, the unknown, something we simply can't understand and can't perceive as a threat or not. It results in an emotion difficult to define but still universally felt. In short, humans fear what they don't understand yet. When the brain can't perceive if a threat exists or not, it assumes that a threat does exist. And while the Uncanny Valley is a magnificent example of this, my presentation is going to move on from the horror aspect now and move on to how the fear manifests itself in a somewhat more anticlimactic setting, real life. Which brings me to the second question that I posed earlier. To what extent does this fear benefit us? Humans operate on a basic animalistic desire to live, reproduce, and keep our species going. Our fear of the unknown is vital to us here. We don't associate ourselves with things that we don't understand, and it very well could be the difference between life or death in a lot of situations. We face a multitude of choices every day that affect our well-being, and for the most part, we do a good job in avoiding things that we don't know will kill us, but we don't want to take the chance. We don't approach skeevy strangers on the street. We don't venture into potentially dangerous alleyways or forests. I was out with some friends this weekend. We were on a walk late at night around Grand Ledge. On our walk through a park, no kidding, we saw someone on the foggy horizon who had a striking resemblance to Goofy from Mickey Mouse. That Goofy. Me and two other sane members of the group didn't know what this person was up to in a park late at night alone, but we sure didn't want to find out. I'm not ashamed to say that we ran away and hid. And as humans, we don't do these things not because we know something bad will happen to us. We don't do these things because we don't know if something bad will happen to us, and that's one of the things that scares us the most. However, there were two members of our group that weren't scared. Those two decided to be thrill seekers. While the rest of us bailed, those two decided the best course of action would be to approach our potential threat. They ran up to Goofy, who turned out to be a girl, and while we cowered across the park, they got to pet her dog. I love dogs, man. I love them so much, and I'm so sad I didn't get to pet that dog. I'm sorry. Anyways, my tragic story brings me to the final question that I posed earlier. To what extent does our fear hinder us? Essentially, this is a counter-argument to my last point. Tell me, can you recall a time when you were offered a new experience and you turned it down simply because of all the unknowns about how it would go? That's a familiar situation for me, and I'm sure many of you can relate. When does our fear take such an overbearing hold of us that it restricts us? It restricts us from new experiences, from new friends, new fun, and most importantly, of course, new dogs. When we let our fear of the unknown overtake us, we thrust ourselves into a routine, a life of repetition, day after day, repeating, boredom, monotony, repeating. Our fear takes hold of us and doesn't let go until we've lived a life with nothing to look back on. What I'm trying to say here is, our natural fear of the unknown does affect how we interact with the world around us, and it does so to different extents, depending on what kind of person you are. It can keep you from making stupid decisions or putting yourself in danger, but it can also keep you from taking risks, trying new things, and leading a fulfilling life in general. If there's one thing I want you to take from this presentation, it's that letting go of our natural fear can be a first step towards something beautiful, amazing, or life-changing. I mean, I'm not saying that you should let it go completely, because we still do need the fear. It's here for a reason, and I don't want it to be my problem if you make a life-endangering decision. What I am saying, however, is take some risks, and if you meet any new dogs, please give them a pet from me. Thank you.